Unfortunately, this is not at all the case. As we know from documentation, these were actually not developed until 1918, and by that point, there were plenty of machine guns in aircraft.
Cablegrams back and forth on the development and the reason for this particular rifle, which is, indeed, it was supposed to be taken up by pilots and crew.
This would have been a completely useless weapon for shooting at another airplane.
And shot from the airplane at other airplanes.
This would have been a completely useless weapon for shooting at another airplane.
And shot from the airplane at other airplanes.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to a quick video on forgotten weapons with Othais from C&Rsenal. We are going to talk briefly about the Air Service 1903 Springfield.
Yep, it looks like I was a bad friend because, thanks again, by the way, to Andrew from Archival Research Group, link in the description if you guys want to use his services, because apparently he's this good to cause all this controversy. According to him, and according to a memo that I did not release because I did not have permission from him right at that moment, I was trying to be nice to his sort of research efforts and I didn't know what he was doing with it. I've talked to him because of this controversy. We have the document. We'll put it on a scroll by probably right about now. You're not going to be able to read it clearly. It'll also be hosted on the internet. But Ian and I both have seen the document now. I just did not think of the fact that he would have an air service in his hands because of this auction, and I did not give him the down low.
So what I got a number of people asking me was if we were both doing videos with the same gun. And in fact, we were not. We both independently came up with Air Service 1903 Springfields.
Yeah, this might be the first time two have just been floating around in the wild at one time. This is a very rare gun. It's up there with the Pedersen in terms of U.S. history and lore. But that also puts it in a position where there's not a lot written about it, and it takes time to research. Now, we have had the benefit of some sort of archival cleaning up in the most recent years that were not available to authors that were, say, writing books that Ian and I normally rely on for this stuff. So I actually read the same source he did, and the argument for a survival rifle is a very strong argument because, frankly, this gun does not make a lot of sense in air-to-air combat. And if you're looking at it logically and you assume a logical ordnance department, I would agree. And by the way, without Andrew's work, I would have said that this was a survival rifle, most likely. We now know that that's not the case. And so the gist of the document is, and you guys can read it on your own, the aerial guys in France are saying, we need something for when the machine guns jam, and we're currently playing around with some Winchester carbines, and maybe the 401 would be good. Yeah, Ian's got just the thing. You want to talk about that for a moment, buddy?
Yeah, basically, well, this is a 1907 Winchester self-loader. It is a number of these were used. This is a particularly crummy commercial example, not an actual French or American issue air service one. But basically, it's a blowback semi-auto in either 351 in 1907 or 401 Winchester caliber. And this would have made a far better aircraft rifle than a bolt-action Springfield.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if you read the document, it's almost like they're saying, could you please just get us some 401s? But they did happen to say that maybe they'd like it if they could get the, cartridge a little hotter, like the 401. Well, that started the Ordnance Department apparently down a whole other honey hole because they ended up with this. They just said, well, we got a ton of these guys, so we'll trim them up, clean up the sights to make them nice and open, and give you a big old magazine. This was we're nowhere near the front, and we're not sure what you're talking about, but this is affordable gun. And to be fair, it's not easy to field a lot of semi-automatics in World War I, as we'll constantly see through both of our video series. So I think what's coming down now is people are going to say, okay, Ian and I are disagreeing about whatever. No, the truth is Ian went with the best data that was available up until this one particular memo. And by the way, this one particular memo reveals that Ian was correct. This gun doesn't make any sense because it's not what they asked for. It's just what they were given. This is another one of those World War I U.S. Ordnance not being on the ball issues.
I have to say, in general, a big shout out to what you're doing with C&Rsenal. You do a lot more original research than I do. What I do is typically compile the available information from what I try to make as the widest variety of best reputable sources. But with the volume I'm doing, I don't have time to go into an arsenal and an archive and start digging up original documents. So when people like you are able to do that, it's awesome. And that's where we get newer and better information. And it's really cool to see that memo of what were these guys actually looking for? Because, I mean, really, the thing that they wanted the most, which would have been super cool to see, is an extended mag 1910 Winchester self-loader with explosive projectiles.
Yeah, E and I both are. We're going to be in agreement on this all the time. We're both communicators of other people's research. So you guys might look at us and say, you're my favorite person on YouTube or not. I get picked on all the time both ways. But our favorite people are the authors who do the deep research and then are willing to share it. Those are two stages distinctly. We know, both of us know a lot of guys who do a lot of research and never speak a word. So having the ability to look into this and then communicate it, great. And then that information comes to us. That's sort of like the first tier. And then we're both second tier communicators. All we're doing is going from what's already been amassed, because there's no possible way for us to provide you variety and depth wholly from original content. We must sacrifice some of our depth for the variety. Now, in Ian's case, let's assume that his show and mine started at the exact same time, which they did not. He laid the groundwork for a lot of you to even be here, for there to be a market here. But if they launched at the same time, or even if mine launched a year before his, the output for Ian's show, because it is basically a curio show, look at this amazing stuff, look at the diversity of this amazing stuff, he would overrun C&Rsenal's production, I mean, in the first year, easily, because he's able to produce multiple videos a week, because he puts all of his emphasis on travel and negotiating, borrowing things, and showing them off to you. He's very guerrilla, and that requires a lot of up-top memory work. He's got to read and work on the fly, and that's why you're going to see a quick, simple cadence for everything he's doing. Ours is set up on a 2-week rotation. It's very slow, very plodding. I mean, it's been 3 years and we've got 60-something episodes. It is much more tuned to a standard sort of TV documentary style. And in that regard, I have more time to do this deep dive. I have more time, as we've gotten into the show, to talk to more people and get their information much more personally on these sort of firearms. So before anybody comes down on either one of us, depending on who gets there first and who has the time, we're going to get different results. And that's why you should go ahead and just watch both things and understand how history is still alive. And it's a working science that you can, by the way, get involved in. I mean, none of this is proprietary. If you take the time and are willing to read and go and read again, you can get involved in this the same as anybody else. If there's something that you don't know enough about, you can reach out and you can find the solutions just as well as anybody out there doing this sort of recording.
That's the fantastic thing about the internet. And by the way, I'm flattered. I think before we get too deep into the Mutual Admiration Society, what we do really, the two channels really do, they work together very well. I always enjoy getting the much deeper depth of research that you're able to put into the episodes. So, but what you say about people being able to do this themselves is absolutely true. For sure, all of the resources I use are out there. They may take some time to find periodically, but if there's a subject you're interested in, absolutely chase it down, and you can be doing this as well as Othais and I both.
All right, so controversy resolved. Ian and I get along just fine. We're actually fairly good friends at this point. For those of you who wonder why we don't do collabs all the time, we live very, very, very far apart, and both of us have material equipment needs to get around. So we'll try. We'll get to it when we can, but it's not necessarily an easy thing, especially when both of us are sort of pushing the limits of our own ability to produce right now so that we can sort of keep this thing moving. And for anybody wondering if we start getting competitive about this stuff, no. This is one of those rising tide situations. The more hooks there are out there to get you guys interested in this stuff, the more likely we are to expand both of our markets together. There's no reason to get ego and bullying involved in any of this stuff. And we were always happy to be wrong, because from our perspective, new information is our delight. That's what we want. We don't sit around and watch our own old episodes over and over again. We want to hear what's new, what's cutting edge on the research. And we're happy to redo things when they're wrong, because we get to retreat the whole topic.
Yep, absolutely. And just to clear one thing up, this was actually a coincidence that we came out with these two videos so close together. We've had one or two before where we did plan out a mutual video release, but this one I think caught us both a bit off guard.
No, it's actually, I find it very odd, but I feel like we do end up with the same stuff around the same time. And that's just superstition to me, because there's no logical reason why these things would sort of coalesce at the same points. But it's been beneficial multiple times over, because we can literally compare notes, which is fantastic for anything that we're doing.
Yeah. So hopefully we will have more actual collaboration in the future. In fact, it'd be nice to actually be in the same room at some point. I'd really look forward to doing some video like that. Hopefully it'll be possible with travel and work schedules eventually?
Yeah, we we're already debating. We're literally having a conversation before this video of, okay, so 10 months from now, are we going to be able to get in the same room? Maybe. That's the sort of planning we're having to do. Now, a lot of that, by the way, is my fault. We're working from a diminishing list, so I have to go where I can go, when I can go to get these pieces. Once we clear World War I, I can start sort of spreading out a little thinner. And actually, after World War I, we'll probably be less rare, less often, because we can just go to standard rifles all across history with have lots of deep available material, and I can start to relax a bit. All right, that's all. I want to thank Ian for his video. I want to thank him for putting out the perspective that was already common. And by the way, I know it might feel a little awkward to hear what was the old version of the information. Old as in 3 weeks ago old. But think about it. That's been our history with this gun for 30, 40 years at least. Now all of a sudden it's changed. And by the way, somebody could find one extra twist in the story that justifies what they were doing, or maybe they modified the expectation of the rifles and we don't have a cablegram for that. I could end up being wrong. In a lot of my videos, there's going to be little things that end up being wrong as people do more research. So the pendulum will swing both ways on both of us. It's okay. That's why there's a sort of time will tell peer review element to all of this.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, one cablegram could come back after this one and say, oh, well, you're going to send us Springfields? Well, we'll use those as survival rifles because they wouldn't work for this application. No. At any rate, big thank you, Othais. I really appreciate having the chance to talk to you on this briefly. And hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing a little bit of a clearing up of what happened. And yeah, we'll compare notes a little more ahead of time next time. Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.